So I'm going to be showing you a finished rendering in pen and ink and colored pencil. So in this video, I'd like to make a primer first prior to how and what elements did I use in drawing that in that finished rendering. The lines, when we're going to be doing lines, there are two different types of lines that I use. One is thin and one is thick. Then after which we go into the types of shading, particularly something that is in this gradual tonal value, which is from dark to light, light to dark. So this gives a bit more three-dimensionality of the illustrated object. And it's okay to sort of sometimes go over or over the edge types of rendering. So it's overlapping on the edge is okay when it's needed. Like I don't do it very perfectly. Keep those white areas. If we're talking about shading, we don't necessarily need to shade every inch of the paper. And then sometimes we also need this sort of contrasting here that I'm placing against the whiteness, make the object pop out a bit more from the illustration. So we go into coloring. Here I'm using some sort of a flat area if I want to have that hardness of pencil. Sometimes we need to have that much pressure. Here I'm illustrating two colors which we're going to be using much in architectural illustrations, which is violet and the yellow. So the yellow is a primary color and the secondary color is violet, which are opposites. Another example would be the red here, and opposite of that color wheel is this green. So when you blend these two together, these two colors opposite, they will produce this gray. It becomes this sort of gray. Another example of this one is what if we use the primary color blue and mix it with an opposite color, which is a secondary color of orange. And if these two mix together, they become gray. It's basically, if you think about it, it's like sort of like the gray actually is a result of mixing all the three primary colors. So to illustrate this, I'm going to do a very simple color wheel here. So I started with the primary colors. Now I'm producing secondary colors. So I'm mixing here red and blue, which becomes violet. And then here now I'm mixing yellow and red, which becomes orange. So basically, if you take a look at this, the blue and the orange are opposites. It's like mixing all the three colors. So here, so this is a prime example of how you can achieve more interesting grays by mixing secondary colors complementing the primary color and the opposite of the color wheel. Now, violet is going to be used a lot of the time. So personally, I use this a lot of the time to shade figures or entourage and the sorts. So this is a simple way of doing it. Like for example, when I do entourage of cars, I do the outline first. And then when I'm trying to render this, I'm going to always usually use violet first. So, but then I want this to be a colored red car, for example. And then it's only towards the end that I use or blend in the red color. So this gives you a cue of that three-dimensionality of the car. And at the same time, it gives me the idea of that it is a red car. So this is how I do all simple trees what I do here is draw. That's very simple. This is how simple I could do a tree with the scale of a person. And underneath, usually when I do trees, I put smaller plants, and I don't directly use green, but I produce them by mixing yellow and the types of blues, and then I use violet again on the shaded underneath of the trees as well as the trunk. And then here I'm using again, the last part is the violet, and then I'm placing in a bit of random dots of red just to note that it has flowers or fruits. Now, in the strokes where what I use in my illustrations, I usually do this sort of random types of strokes, little tiny strokes which are not broad or long, and with different pressures. And here is the how I shave my the tip of my colored pencil. So it's not the typical way of just doing a sharpener, and because it's interesting because I could produce these types of lines, which is thin or thick. So depending on what I need, I just turn it over. Like this blunt could produce this type of broad, light, broad, or so I could readily shift to anything that I need. If I need a thinner line, I would just rotate my pencil to such. I need a broader type of coloring, and I can use this. So it's sharper here. You can see that. So it also depends on the type of pressure that you will be placing onto the colored pencil. So all depends on what you need. So I guess this is the basic stuff that you need to know first before doing colored pencil rendering. So I showed you the types of lines that you need to produce and the type of shading and the color combinations. And you could probably look at this video. I could probably put a link up there, and you could check it out yourself. How I rendered a colored pencil demonstration for architectural illustration. Thank you for watching.